All right, let's take a look at example 6.1. So we're asked to write a function named find negative element that encapsulates the code from example 4.9 that finds the location of or index of the first, I emphasize the first negative number in a vector. Okay, and so rather than looking back at example 4.9, let's just go over to MATLAB and let's write a function to find the first negative element of a vector. Cool. So I'm going to create a vector. Okay, and so I won't necessarily worry about the documentation quite yet, but it was going to be function res is equal to find negative element. Okay, and so this function is going to have an input of, say, x, right? X is going to be the vector that we want to find the index of the first negative element of, and then res will be the index. Okay, and so then, what are we going to do? Okay, so I'm going to save that. I'm going to come down to my command window, and I'm going to create just some dummy vector. So say I wanted to make it really dummy, or really, if I wanted to truly create some random vector that I didn't know the answer of, let's do x is, so if I do rand 1, 10, it'll create a row vector of 1 row and 10 columns of random numbers uniformly distributed between 0 and 1. Okay, so let's see. So if I were to multiply that by 20, they'd be random numbers uniformly distributed between 0 and 20. If I subtract 10, then they'll be uniformly distributed between 10 and negative 10. Okay, and just for fun, let me round it so they're all integers. All right, so cool. So now I have this x, and what I'd like to do is I'd write this function to return the first negative element of this vector. And at this point, we haven't talked about logical vectors or find, so we just want to use the skills that we've worked on so far. And so if I think about how I would do this manually, is if I'm trying to find the first negative element, right? Manually, I would start at the first position, check to see if it's negative. If it's not, move on to the second, and if it's not, move on to the third, and so on and so forth. Right? And so we can accomplish exactly that. Right? If I want to start from the top and go to the bottom, that suggests me a for loop where I'm going to loop from 1 to the length of x, and then at each position, I want to check to see if that element's negative. Right? I want to check to see if it's less than 0. If it is, I found my index, return that, and exit. Okay? So simply, it should just be, so for I equals 1 to length x. Okay? In each iteration, what I want to do is check to see if x of I is negative. If it is, then the res is equal to I, my index. And end. Okay. So first let's run that. Okay. Check to make sure it works here, and then improve upon it. Okay. And actually, before I even do that, I see that I can readily improve upon it. The issue I'm going to have here is that the third element's going to be negative. Okay, so when I get to the when I have I is equal to 3, I'll get res is equal to 3, but then it's going to keep proceeding, and so what it'll ultimately return is the last index. And so what I need to add here is either a break to exit my for loop or a return statement to exit my function. Right? Either will achieve the same thing. So let me add return to exit my function. Okay, and so if I give this a try, index is equal to find negative element x. Right? I get 3. Okay, I get the index of the first negative element. Right? And so by adding this return, the first time, so I'm going to loop through from 1 to length x. At each element, I'm going to perform this logical check. Okay, if this is found to be true, and the first time it's found to be true means I have my first negative number, then I'm going to assign I to res, and then return means exit my function. I did what I wanted to do and find the first and negative element. Okay, cool. In terms of improving this, the only other thing I could think of is if this were a vector in which I had no negative elements, what would happen? Okay, so what if x were 4, 4, 5, 6? I don't know, something simple like that. So if I were to apply our function to it, all right, I get res is not assigned, and that's fine, right? So basically that tells us that there are no negative elements. The other thing you could do if you wanted is you could do things like assign res a value of nan or 0, some sort of invalid index, or maybe display an error message of your own. Okay, but that's example 6.1.